Did you know Salvador Dali designed a museum that he described as the largest surrealist object in the world? Today I'm visiting the town where he was born, exploring the bizarre museum he created himself, and learning some of the strange stories from his life, including how he secretly and illegally transported his wife's deceased body in a Cadillac. Welcome to Figueres, Spain, the home of the Dali Theater Museum. I booked the Dali Triangle Cadaques tour through Get Your Guide, and I highly recommend it. I actually went during the off-season, and there was only one other person on the tour, so it ended up feeling like a really private and personal experience. Now, the tour is a little misleading. The Dali Triangle technically includes 3 places: the Dali Theater Museum in Figueres, Dali's house in Port Lligat near Cadaques, and the medieval castle in Pubol that he bought for his wife, Gala. We were told it's basically impossible to see all 3 in a single day, especially in winter, because museums in Spain open pretty late. The Dali Museum in Figueres doesn't open until 10:30 in the morning. So instead, we started our day in Figueres, the town where Salvador Dali was born. Before entering the museum, we visited Dali's childhood home and stopped at Hotel Duran. The hotel was one of Dali's favorite places. He often ate here and even stayed here while he was working on building his museum. The property displays a collection of Dali's works, photographs, and signed menus. At 10:30, it was time to enter the museum. The Dali Theater Museum was designed by Dali himself and built on the ruins of an old municipal theater. Dali once described his vision like this: "I want my museum to be a single block, a labyrinth, a great surrealist object. It will be a totally theatrical museum. The people who come to see it will leave with a sensation of having a theatrical dream." And honestly, that's exactly what it feels like. Inside the courtyard, there's one of the most unusual displays in the museum: Dali's 1940s Cadillac. The car is filled with plants and snails, and if you drop a coin into a box nearby, it actually makes it rain inside the car. Suspended above it is a boat that actually came from Dali's home in Port Lligat. This was actually a place Dali knew well as a child, and it was one of the first places that ever exhibited his artwork. The theater was destroyed during the Spanish Civil War and remained abandoned for many years. Then in 1960, Dali and the mayor of Figueres came up with an idea: rebuild the ruins as a museum dedicated entirely to his work. The city council approved the plan in 1968. The construction started soon after, and the museum officially opened on September 28, 1974. One of the most fascinating pieces in the museum is a painting called Gala Contemplating the Mediterranean Sea. If you stand close to the painting, you see a nude image of Dali's wife, Gala, looking out toward the sea. But if you step back far enough, the entire image transforms into a pixelated portrait of Abraham Lincoln. That's Dali's tomb, just in front of the stage area. Thousands of people walk on his grave every year, possibly without even realizing. The location of his grave is a point of controversy, as he had long expressed a wish to be buried alongside Gala at Pubol Castle. The castle even contains a double tomb. However, according to the mayor of Figueres, Dali changed his mind, wishing for his final resting place to be at the museum. Some say the mayor fabricated this claim to boost tourism. Another interpretation is that Dali's museum crypt was planned, making it the ultimate work containing even the artist himself. In 2017, a judge in Madrid ordered his body to be exhumed after a woman claimed he was her father. DNA samples were taken, but the test proved there was no biological relationship. The case was eventually dismissed, and the woman was ordered to pay the legal cost. Even decades after his death, Dali was still surrounded by surreal drama. Overlooking Dali's tomb in the stage area of the large room is Labyrinth, his work of 1947. It was originally a backdrop for the ballet of the same name, based on the Greek myth of Theseus and Ariadne, and first performed at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York in 1941. The sets and costumes were designed by Dali. This is the treasure room. Dali chose some of his favorite paintings to be displayed here. We also learned a lot about Dali's relationship with his wife Gala. They were together for 53 years and their relationship was unconventional. Their partnership is often been described as codependent and non-monogamous. Gala had numerous affairs, but she was also Dali's muse, business advisor, and the inspiration behind many of his most famous paintings. In 1969, Dali bought a medieval castle in the village of Pubal just for Gala. And here's the strange part. He could only visit the castle if he had written permission from her. Here's just a few of the other works I liked in the museum. This is the Mae West room. The room is an optical illusion. Seemingly random pieces of furniture come together to form a face. Climbing the stairs and looking through a magnifying glass forms the portrait of Mae West. Even the outside of the building is surreal. The bright red walls are covered with sculptures of golden bread, one of Dali's recurring symbols. Along the roofline are giant white eggs, which represent life and creativity. After visiting the museum, we continued on to the beautiful coastal town of Cadaques for lunch. This area was incredibly important to Dali and inspired many of his paintings throughout his life. I actually ended up buying a t-shirt at the museum featuring one of the famous paintings in Cadaques. Dali was a controversial figure politically. In 1948, he and Gala moved back to Spain and lived in their house in Port Lligat during the dictatorship of Francisco Franco. Dali's public support of the regime angered many artists and intellectuals. Pablo Picasso refused to even mention Dali's name for the rest of his life. This is Dali's house in Lligat. The museum offers an intimate portrait into Dali's life. Time stands still, and things were left as they were the day that Gala died. When Gala died in 1982 after a long illness, Dali was devastated. Her death sent him into a deep depression and marked the beginning of a serious decline in his health. Despite laws prohibiting the transport of a body without permission, Dali reportedly wrapped Gala's body, placed it in his Cadillac, and secretly transported her to the castle in Pubal so she could be buried in the crypt there. Between the surreal architecture, the incredible artwork, and all the strange stories from Dali's life, visiting the Dali museums was definitely one of the most fascinating stops on my trip to Spain. If you're visiting Catalonia, I would absolutely recommend adding this to your itinerary. Enjoy some images of the weird and wonderful life of Dali, and don't forget to like and subscribe.